This video is going to be a preview slash film study look at the Ravens pass game, specifically against the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game last year, but also comparing it to some known throws that Lamar and the Ravens were able to complete with consistency at times in 2023 as Todd Monken installed the offense for the first time. I do think that the pass protection is a huge factor related to the pass game. That is not the focus of this video, to be real with you. Nonetheless, it is something that has to be handled. Can the Ravens pass pro the Chiefs? Well, yes, they can, but it's a matter of how many resources you have to allocate in order for that to occur. I think Todd Monken would like to utilize as many six-man protection schemes as possible, or in some cases, five-man protection schemes when he suspects or when he knows the Chiefs are only going to bring four. In those unknown situations, I believe that begin early second quarter, sometimes late first quarter, where teams have kind of trained our offensive eyes to expect a certain type of rush scheme, and then they start to bring pressure. I feel like the Texans and the Chiefs did a great job of that last year in some of the games that we played. Now, granted, the Chiefs brought pressure on the first possession, the first third down, which is where we'll start this video. So just to make it clear, I'm not here to talk about whether Daniel Falele can block Chris Jones, or whether Tyler Linderbaum is going to be healthy enough to deal with their D tackles or inside linebackers on stunts, or what Ronnie Stanley is going to look like. I think our offensive line is an absolute question mark. I could speculate on it, but I really don't have any idea because we haven't seen most of those guys out there, particularly Linderbaum and Ronnie Stanley. And they will get thrown into the fire on Thursday night at Kansas City on the road, the two-time defending Super Bowl champion. So it's a tall task for our offensive line. Todd Monken will have to be able to adapt, I think, during the game in terms of how many running backs, tight ends, or utilizing Patrick Ricard strategically to help block and throw the football. I've done some videos on personnel groupings that I think could be effective. Check those out if you want to. This will be my final preview pretty much, and it'll only focus on missed opportunities in the pass game in the AFC Championship game last year, number one. Number two, perhaps things that the Ravens could do different or better to get a different result this time. The big one that most of us focused on, early in that game, so 3rd and 7, the Chiefs are bringing pressure from a three-man front, so three defensive linemen on the field, and bringing safety slash inside linebacker pressure on top of it. Going to be a tough opportunity for Aguilar to get the first down anyway. It certainly goes down as a drop for him. It's man defense. Are they going to miss L'Jarius Sneed? Well, yes, you will see examples in this video of Zay Flowers and other guys getting open against him. So he's not just the end-all, be-all as far as a corner, but they will have an impact missing him. Surprising amount of times where we were effective in the pass game out of 12 personnel against this Chiefs team. Here you see Likely and Andrews on the field. This is second possession, by the way. It's a 2nd and 10. Lamar ends up completing it over the middle to Mark Andrews. I think this is by design to isolate Andrews in the middle of the field against the inside linebacker, and Lamar and him are just adjusting to the leverage and then taking advantage of the opportunity, of the space, I should say, that's there, being as the other inside linebacker. I think Drew Tranquil is somewhat focused on the running back in this particular coverage. It's a 2nd and 10, goes down as a 9-yard gain. Again, it's on the second possession of the game. There were times where we were in sync or things were smooth, but those were few and far between against this Chiefs defense in the AFC Championship game. Third possession now. This is going to be a point that I will make probably in the reaction video, depending on if we do this and how it turns out, how the Chiefs adjust. 11 personnel situation, 1st and 10, second quarter. In fact, early second quarter. I think about 12 minutes left in the second quarter. We originally line up in trips to the field, and what that does is it gets the nickel defender to the field. One thing to note as well here, the Chiefs' defensive guys are not in stances often. This appears to be strategic. Have I seen them do this some based on 2023 film? Yes. And I didn't even notice it necessarily last year. They are in really poor stances, in fact. I think they're trying to not give away their intentions in terms of where they're going to drop and make Lamar and the offensive line and anyone who's staying into block have to figure it out maybe a little bit later than normal in terms of who's blitzing and who's not. But getting back to what I want to see the Ravens try, and try early, and that's 11 personnel, tight end to the field, and Zay Flowers, or someone who's very agile, into the boundary as a slot receiver. In this case, he ends up underneath of Drew Tranquil, an inside linebacker. We're getting a vertical route by number one, and Zay just sits down underneath of the zone. And once he catches it, it's a mismatch in terms of space. You do have a safety, I think that's Reed, trying to get to him. Tranquil ends up making the tackle. I'm basically talking about inverting your typical 11 personnel, not inverting it as far as where they line up in the backfield or on the line of scrimmage. I'm talking about inverting it from a field and boundary position. 11 personnel, get the receiver, third receiver, to the field, like you see here in the beginning once again, and then motion him to the boundary. Why? The tight end stays to the field, and the nickel goes to the boundary. Well, then you pretty much know you've got man, or some version of man. Now, Lamar has pretty reliably gained the coverage, and I think that's important as it relates to Lamar getting rid of the ball on time, or any quarterback getting rid of the ball on time. If they know the coverage pre-snap and post-snap it's confirmed, I think you've got a more comfortable and confident quarterback getting rid of the football, because I think there's times where Lamar is risk averse. And what I mean by that is he's trying to ensure that he doesn't turn the football over. And so there's times where the ball is held a little bit longer than maybe it should be. This may be one of them, but I think you've got pressure from the left side that's preventing him or dissuading him from throwing this deeper in cut to OBJ. You certainly don't want to throw it right in front of the safety at all, but that's the route where Lamar was looking. He's got the arm strength, I think, to zip that thing in there underneath of the safety. It's a 2nd and 9, the same possession. Chris Jones ends up getting a quarterback hit, pressure, and then Lamar tries to throw the ball, I think, to Justice Hill, and we're fortunate that it ends up being determined to be an incomplete pass. He's clearly trying to throw the ball forward. A lot of pressure being brought on Lamar there. So I think that situation I described to you a couple of plays ago with Zay Flowers is something to look for early. 11 personnel, two receivers, into the boundary, but using motion to make that happen, to force the Chiefs defense to kind of declare their coverage, make Lamar feel more comfortable, number one. Number two, also possibly limit the Chiefs' blitz umbrella, make it a smaller net of possible blitz options for them that we have to worry about. I think this one is pretty self-explanatory. It's a great play by Chris Jones on a 3rd and 9, the very next play, by the way. It's a great play by Chris Jones. I do think Lamar's a little bit late getting rid of this football, getting it out of here. But nonetheless, it's a screen, so you're not going to block the defensive end to that side. So there's really not much we can say about these guys leaking out of here to go get a defender and try to push him out for what would be a tunnel screen, and I think looks really nicely set up. We get Moses here, Linderbaum here. I mean, I think we're looking at a huge play. So credit to Chris Jones for being able to knock it down. I wish Lamar was 0.1 seconds quicker in terms of getting rid of that football, but you got huge wingspan with Chris Jones, great reaction and awareness. So it's possible even if Lamar's quicker, he still gets a hand up and influences the play. 5th possession, we're at midfield. And this is going to be one of the times. I'll talk about the slot fade at length here a little bit later. We did complete this later on in the 4th quarter. Safety kind of jumped the route. I think the safety in that situation thought that it was going to be just an out route, so he basically went for the pick. Here you have Aguilar with horizontal space and separation, maybe not as much vertical separation. This ball clearly could be thrown in a more catchable location. There is not pressure at first. I think Lamar's arm talent is tremendously underrated, his arm strength. I actually really don't like the term arm talent, but the typical alignment for the Ravens involves 11 personnel, tight end, running back, receiver into the boundary, 2 receivers to the field. Again, to compare or evoke that play that I talked about where Zay Flowers was into the boundary and Isaiah Likely ended up being to the field. Opportunity for Lamar to get the ball out here. We just don't make the throw. I think we're maybe pulling back on this a little bit too much, and that gives you less of a margin for error. When I say pulling back, we're not as much following through. There is a free rusher off the edge, so that's been a factor at times on some of his deep throws. 3rd and 4, 2nd quarter. This one ends up to Justice Hill over to the right-hand side. It does look like, I believe this is Karlaftis down here at the bottom. I may have a Karlaftis video out early Thursday morning because he's an extremely underrated guy. Personally, I didn't look at him as a guy who would get drafted any earlier than he did. But credit to the Chiefs for picking him up, and I believe he's got 18 sacks in 2 years. Maybe it's 16 or 17, but been a very effective player, a very physical guy against the run, and active and disruptive. And here, I think he's getting a hand up. Maybe he gets a hand on the football. I'm not sure. But that's a 3rd and 4. We're not able to convert it. You could say, hey, we've got 3 receivers to the field, and I want us to be able to either attack the flats here or come back to, I think this is Bateman, kind of like a little snag curl behind the flat defender, and Lamar take his choice over there. But we've been successful on this backside slant flat or snag flat, which is similar, kind of like the cousin to it. We've been successful on this stuff a lot in 2023, so I get it. Lamar can execute those things, and that's the point of this video. We'll get to it here in a moment. We did adjust at a certain time, going back and watching the film again. This is 6th possession. We started throwing to the running backs and the tight ends underneath a little more. You know, maybe was that a result of us looking to throw the ball too deep? Basically, we can't pass pro them that long effectively, and therefore we need to get to shorter routes. Maybe it was an adjustment by Todd Monken in the play calling. Maybe it was an adjustment by Lamar. But again, it's another example of 12 personnel. Likely and Andrews are on the field. You end up with Gus Edwards down here to the field side, wide open, and the Chiefs are extremely fortunate that this doesn't end up going for more. If Gus kind of sets it up or brings it back to the middle of the field, I think with his agility and ability to make people miss, we've got a great opportunity there. 12 personnel one more time. Chiefs are in their 4-3 base, and we go underneath. That, to me, is a recipe for a possibility for this team on Thursday night. 12 personnel and looking to get the ball to the running backs in the pass game. If they respond, they being the Chiefs, they respond with their 4-3 base, declaring their coverage against a 2-by-2 set, 2-by-2 formation is difficult to do. Now, in this case, they have rolled safety down to the field, and then they're spinning him back to a half-field alignment post-snap. I saw multiple things on rewatch of the film last night, Tuesday night, and then again today, Wednesday, that we could have attacked number 2 more often. And in fact, we did go up top a couple of times against him, and I thought it was there. But this goes down for 11 yards. Justice Hill looks like he's shot out of a cannon. You let me know if you agree, if you see some of the things I'm talking about here with 12 personnel against their 4-3 base, and then looking to get the ball to the running backs underneath because those safeties are generally going to be in a high alignment. Totally changing personnel groups here. Third quarter, late third quarter, that is, 20 personnel. I would call this a second man through concept. You're getting a wheel. It's half mesh, essentially. You're getting a wheel route by Justice Hill down in here to the boundary that's going to clear out a whole lot of space by the top of between the top of the numbers and the hash. And then Zay Flowers is going to run onto that space. A lot of attacking to the boundary underneath seemed to be the adjustment for us, maybe because we weren't hitting on the deeper passes. Maybe we didn't think we were open. We couldn't pass pro them, whatever the case may be. Maybe we see these things more often, earlier in the game, that is, on Thursday night. Not sure this is the design of it, but it does end up being the tight end into the boundary underneath. Chip by Likely, and then 10 yards into the boundary. He operates extremely well there. There always seems to be an extra 2 or 3 yards for Likely after catching the ball down into the boundary. He's a unique talent, if you ask me, in that he catches the ball smoothly, and he's ready to make a move. He's ready to make a cut, even if it's a small cut, pretty quickly after catching the football. I don't know what you call that. He's a very good athlete, great hand-eye coordination, and he seems to set up his yards after the catch well. Deep opportunity for OBJ, who wins off the line against number 2. Again, I'm not even sure what his name is, to be honest with you, but he ends up catching up. I thought there was 3 or 4 times in this game where, it's months ago, so sour grapes at this point. But I thought there was multiple times where we're either open or we've got leverage, got a step, and they are grabbing and making contact down the field that, I've seen called, it's light contact, don't get me wrong, but I've seen called, especially when you're beat Nonetheless, the ball needs to be thrown in a more catchable location, especially when you have a clean pocket like that. 4th and 3, again, what do we do? What's our answer? 2 receivers into the boundary, tight end to the field. We're at about 8 minutes, maybe 8.5 minutes in the fourth quarter, 4th and 3, and we're going for it from our own 18. Tight end receiver to the top side, 2 receivers to the downside. It's essentially snag flat. 1 receiver going here, and then the running back would normally be running out into the flats. Well, we don't need him to because we have 2 receivers down there. So Bateman just sits there. We pretty much knew where we were going with the football. That 2 receivers into the boundary, I think, is going to be an interesting option. Do the Ravens have the ability to go 10 personnel? No, because then I think you're going to get the Chiefs' dime defense. I think you're going to get 6 DBs on the field possibly then. I look for 11 personnel with 2 receivers to the boundary and the tight end to the field early on to see how the Chiefs respond to it. Trips formation. This is still fourth quarter. This is the very next play, in fact, I think. 1st and 10. Maybe we've got this deeper in cut to OBJ if the ball is thrown, here, but we've certainly got to triangulate. It's a Tampa 2, basically, I think. You've got a half field safety, outside leverage corner who's pushing 1 OBJ in by leverage. Lamar ends up not taking that for whatever reason. Again, I think the left side pressure is what causes him to kind of step up. I believe it's against Stanley. We have to have a more clean pocket. It's just a matter of how many resources Todd Monken is willing and able to allocate in order to make that happen. Last one for the Chiefs game, and then we'll talk about some throws from last year to basically, I think, prove that Lamar can make these throws. If he's got a clean platform and it's consistent, maybe under pressure, we can't. This is a 1st and 10, 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Slot fade. I think this ball is thrown maybe a foot too far. I also think that OBJ is impeded as he's running up the left sideline. Should it be called? Should it be not? I don't know. Definitely seen people call things before when there's contact down the field. Nonetheless, the DB is looking back for it. So I'm comfortable with it not being called because I wouldn't necessarily want it to be called on us. Point is, that's a throw that we have completed at times in 2023. It wasn't there in the Ravens offense before Todd Monken's arrival. This one's actually incomplete. Week 2 against the Bengals, obviously Zay is wide open, but we have hit it before. Week 5 on the road against the Steelers, Lamar going to connect with Aguilar, bottom side of the screen, up the right sideline, that is, out of a trip set from 11 personnel. If we get into a situation where we know they're playing man, the slot fade is something that Lamar and Monken have gone to, particularly to Aguilar. OBJ had the brilliant, amazing catch against the Dolphins that I'll actually show the end zone angle of here in a moment. I'm trying to avoid copyright stuff, so if I show the end zone angle of some of these throws, hopefully it sneaks through on YouTube. If you guys like the end zone angle, then let me know. If you like the way I package the plays, Lamar's not even able to step into that throw necessarily because of some pressure. That will be the issue, that the pressure / route depth balance, I should say, against the Chiefs. Are they able to get pressure if we protect with 5? Probably far easier than if we protect with 6, and that 6th guy is Ricard. So that would be 20 personnel in some cases, or maybe even 21 with Andrews and or Likely on the field. Touchdown to Aguilar on the slot fade. These are concepts Lamar, I thought, executed better as the season went on. This is week 2, so it doesn't necessarily line up with that statement. But it's a great throw. It's against Awuzie, who's a really good corner for the Bengals. Lamar puts it over the outside shoulder, pretty much indefensible with Aguilar's length and his burst. There's other concepts down the field that Lamar has completed in his one season with Todd Monken. I'm not worried about Lamar throwing the ball against this Chiefs team. I'm not. I'm worried about him having a clean platform consistently enough to throw the ball downfield, number one. As a corollary to that, I'm worried about no OBJ because he clearly trusted OBJ. And I think Lamar's trust level of some of his receivers needs to grow. I do think there's times where certain balls need to be thrown, no matter who the receiver is. Here's an example of it. It's Charlie Kolar, a simply great throw by Lamar, flushed out to his right on the road against the 49ers. Of course, that was a huge win on Christmas night. It's a 4-man rush, were able to protect with 6. You can see the running back chipped. Lamar gets out of there, and I think delivers a great throw. Maybe it could be another 2 feet further to our right on the screen, but it's an example of him throwing the ball to someone who's an anomalous receiver on this team. It's not OBJ. It's not Andrews. It's not Zay Flowers or Likely. I do think there's opportunities to throw the ball to other guys, but Lamar trusted OBJ. And although the stats don't bear it out in his one season in Baltimore, he made plays for us. And Lamar at times was able to throw the ball down the field to him. I don't want to say throw it up, but give him an opportunity to make a play such that it doesn't end up being overthrown. And in my opinion, that's a dynamic I want to see more of, and I want to see it on Thursday night, meaning give some of these guys an opportunity to catch the ball and not overthrow it by 1.5 yards or a yard and have the rest of us arguing. Was it overthrown? Did the receiver slow up? Should something have been done differently? Put it in a catchable place, and I think some of that is trust. But from a physical standpoint, it's silly to sit and say or argue that Lamar can't make some of these throws under pressure. Aaron Donald bearing down on him, 3rd and 17. I think there's a minute 22 left in the fourth quarter. I could be wrong. Minute 28, minute 22, something like that. A sick throw to take the lead. I think we go for 2, and he makes a great throw there as well. It's a ridiculous argument to say that we can't throw the ball accurately, that we can't with a clean platform, and even sometimes on the move with something that's not a clean platform. I thought at one point in time early in the season this was the most ridiculous throw that I saw in all of 2023 because we're fading away, because of the degree of difficulty with how many receivers are there. And then, lo and behold, against the Dolphins in Week 17, that hopefully this is one that doesn't get copyright hit. I think it's a 35-yard gain to OBJ, kind of hanging out off of his right foot. It seems to me as if OBJ and the defender are not there. That ball's going to maybe fly just over the front pylon. One of the most ridiculous throws that I saw from 2023. If that throw was made by other quarterbacks around the NFL, at least 2 or 3 guys whose names you can think of, I feel like it would be talked about for 5 or 8 minutes on national sports shows because those players are associated with incredible arm talent. This is an example, if you ask me, of Lamar showing us, hey, I can make these throws too. Beautiful ball. OBJ, great hands for his entire career, able to get both feet in down. I think it went for 35 yards. Can we throw the ball against this Chiefs team enough to hold them off, slow down the pass rush? And I think the real important question is, give Steve Spagnuolo reasons to not bring so much pressure at times and try to overwhelm our offensive line. Can we basically dissuade him from using certain blitzes that teams have used at times to limit our options? Why do teams blitz us? Why do they bring 6? Why do they occasionally bring 7? Doesn't have anything to do with Lamar's throwing ability, in my opinion. It has to do with his legs, because they want to remove the option for Lamar to scramble in the event that everyone's covered but the pass rush can't corral him. I think it's either or. You either bring 4 against Lamar and then err on the side of coverage, or you bring 6 or 7, but you don't bring 5. That's my opinion. It's something that I have thought about for over 2 years, basically since we saw the Miami Dolphins bring 6 or 7 players consistently. A couple of guys sometimes dropping out via a read for their sticks, blitz zero coverage, but it's my opinion that teams are doing that to remove, because of Lamar's ridiculous scrambling ability, to remove our options. Basically mean the only way you're going to convert this first down, or the only way you're going to retain possession of the ball or score a touchdown, is if you guys throw it to someone who makes a play. And so when I say earlier, you may have gotten upset by it, so forgive me for that. When I say earlier that his trust in certain guys needs to grow, that's the situation I'm describing. The team is going to bring 6 or 7, and they're going to remove Lamar's ability to scramble, which is what that is if you ask me. In essence, it's blitzing a ball handler in basketball and forcing him to give up the ball with 8 or 9 seconds on the shot clock. So someone else has to figure out a way to get points or get a high percentage shot done. I think that's what it is. And that's why I say Lamar's trust in certain guys needs to grow. And we need to see the ball thrown in more catchable locations like he was able to layer or touch or drop throws into OBJ in 2023. So you guys let me know what you think of some of those thoughts. My opening thought that I think, yes, the Ravens can pass pro the Chiefs. but it's just a matter of how many resources it takes, or how many guys, players they have to allocate in order for that to be done successfully. If it's 7 players blocking consistently, then we're going to have difficulty in the pass game, I think, because we've only released 3 in a route. But that can sometimes turn into a chip or 2 that provides a late release that's underneath the coverage. And in and of itself, that's not a bad thing, if you ask me. To utilize it on every passing play is, in fact, a bad thing. You guys let me know what you think of my thoughts and the film that I chose to display, and talk about how I think the Ravens could attack, putting 2 receivers into the boundary out of 11 personnel, 12 personnel, 2x2 sets, flex, a receiver and tight end to the right, receiver, tight end to the left, Lamar in the shotgun, forcing or eliciting the Chiefs' 4-3 defense, and in most cases keeping both safeties back because they don't want to roll the coverage to one side or the other. Appreciate you guys' time, man. If you think other Ravens fans would enjoy this film study look at the Ravens pass game against the Chiefs from last year, kind of projecting it forward to Thursday night's game, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content have more reach.